Mike Tindall has joked that he remembers Prince Harry when he was fun around 15 years ago. The ex-England rugby star who is married to the Duke of Sussex's cousin Zara Phillips cracked the joke. It's not a joke. By the way, Mike's deadly serious about this, trust me.
4 words. That's all it took. When he was fun. Mike Tindall said that out loud at a public literary festival, into a live microphone in front of a crowd. And those 4 words said more about where Prince Harry stands with his own family right now than anything that has come out in the last 3 years of lawsuits, Netflix documentaries, or tell-all memoirs. Because Mike Tindall is not some bitter tabloid journalist. He is not an anonymous palace source hiding behind a pseudonym. He is the man who married Harry's cousin Zara in 2011. He was there at Harry's side through the wild years, the polo matches, the late nights, the royal weddings. He is the man Harry's family trusted enough to ask to be godfather to his and Zara's second daughter, Lena. And he just publicly, cheerfully, without a moment's hesitation, referred to Prince Harry in the past tense. Not who Harry is, who Harry was. That is the story today. And I promise you, there is a lot more buried in this than 4 words. Stay with me. Let's set the scene properly, because the context here matters. The Hay Festival is not some rowdy pub quiz or a rugby club roast. It is one of Britain's most respected literary and arts events, held every year in Hay-on-Wye in Powys, Wales. Former President Bill Clinton once called it the Woodstock of the mind. It draws serious thinkers, writers, journalists, serious people having serious conversations in front of serious audiences. Mike Tindall was there to talk about his life, his rugby career, his podcast, the sort of appearance where you might reasonably expect someone married into the royal family to be careful, measured, diplomatically boring. He was not. Appearing alongside his podcast co-hosts James Haskell and Alex Payne, The Good, the Bad, and the Rugby Boys, which is the same podcast that the Princess of Wales, Prince William, and Princess Anne have all appeared on, Mike got comfortable, and when the conversation turned to his wedding to Zara back in July 2011, something happened. Haskell was talking about the wedding reception held at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. Mike admitted he was genuinely shocked that Haskell, known for being the life and soul of any party, had somehow managed to behave himself that evening. And then Mike said it. A lot of other people managed that way better than you, like Harry, when he was fun. The audience laughed. Mike grinned, Haskell reacted with amusement, and the moment moved on, the way these moments do at a live festival, quickly, casually, as if it were nothing.
At Harry's expense at the Hay Festival. Although he did not go into details, Mr. Tindall hinted that Harry may have made a spectacle of himself when Mike married Zara in 2011, 5 years before he met and fell in love with Meghan Markle.
But it was not nothing, because what Mike Tindall did there, publicly, cheerfully, in front of witnesses, was tell us exactly what the people closest to this family really think. Not what they say in careful palace statements, not what they whisper to trusted journalists, what they actually believe sitting in a room in Wales with a microphone and nowhere to hide. Harry used to be fun. Now, recordedly, he is not. That is the verdict from inside the family. And coming from Mike Tindall specifically, there is a reason this landed the way it did.
Before we go any further, it is worth spending a moment on who Mike Tindall actually is, because I think he is genuinely underestimated as a figure in all of this. He is a former England rugby international, a 2003 World Cup winner, one of the men in white who watched Johnny Wilkinson's drop goals sail over in Sydney and beat Australia in the final seconds of extra time. He went on to captain England himself in 2011, 75 international caps across a 17-year playing career. He has broken his nose so many times during that career that he joked about it at this very Hay Festival appearance, saying, and I love this, taxpayers' money fixed it. It's got the royal warrant if you look inside it. That is who Mike Tindall is. Self-deprecating, plain-spoken, genuinely funny in the way that people who are actually confident tend to be. He doesn't need to perform. He doesn't need to manage his image. He married into the royal family and just got on with it, became part of things, made everyone laugh, kept confidences, showed up. The late Queen adored him. By all accounts, the whole family does. And crucially, he was close to Harry. Genuinely close. Not in the polite, dutiful way that royals sometimes are with relatives they barely know. Actually close. There are photographs of him and Harry roughhousing at polo matches, the two of them larking around in that physical, blokey way that speaks to real comfort. Zara and Harry grew up together as cousins. Mike came into that circle and fitted in. So when Mike Tindall stands at a public festival and suggests Harry used to be fun, the past tense is doing all the work. This is not a stranger's opinion. This is a man who knew Harry well enough to see exactly what changed, who was there before, and who was watching now from a considerable distance. That is why 4 words hit so hard.
Now, Mike's a great guy. I really, really like him. Huge amount of fun, and used to be genuinely close to Prince Harry.
Now, before I get into what happened between Mike and Harry at the Platinum Jubilee in 2022, which is honestly even more uncomfortable than what he said at Hay Festival, I need to tell you about Peter Phillips, because something happened just this week involving Harry's other cousin that puts all of this into very sharp focus. Peter Phillips is Princess Anne's son, Harry's first cousin. They grew up together. Peter was a guest at Harry's wedding to Meghan Markle, and Harry, in return, was a guest at Zara's wedding, where Mike made his now famous comment. These are not distant relatives. These are people who shared Christmases at Sandringham, who grew up inside the same unusual family with the same unusual pressures. Peter is getting married on June 6, 2026, to Harriet Spurling in the Cotswolds, a private, intimate ceremony, close friends and family only. Harry and Meghan are not on the guest list. A source close to Peter told Hello Magazine this week, Peter and Harry haven't spoken for years and simply lost touch. That is the official explanation. But read between those lines for a moment. Peter flew to Harry's wedding. Harry attended Zara's wedding. And now they have not spoken for years and Harry is not coming. That is not losing touch. That is a choice made quietly by someone who has decided where his loyalties are.
I have reported for some time, Brittany, that there are very real tensions between Mike and Zara Tindall, Peter Phillips and Harry and Meghan. They have absolutely sided with Prince William and Catherine. They are absolutely horrified about Prince Harry's behavior.
Peter, by all available evidence, is absolutely Team William. He is closer in age to William, tighter with that side of the family, and, according to insiders, fully aligned with the people who have watched the Sussex situation play out and made their feelings plain through what they do rather than what they say.
So you have Mike Tindall at Hay Festival saying Harry was fun once, and Peter Phillips across the same week not inviting Harry to his wedding because they reportedly haven't spoken in years. 2 cousins, 2 very clear signals. This is the part I promised you, because the Hay Festival comment did not come out of nowhere. There is documented history here, going back to June 2022. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee, a weekend of national celebration, parades, concerts, Thanksgiving services, and underneath all of it, a deeply uncomfortable situation involving Harry and Meghan, who had returned to the UK for the first time since leaving for California. At the Thanksgiving service at St. Paul's Cathedral on June 3, 2022, multiple journalists and royal observers reported something striking. Mike Tindall, according to those accounts, gave the Sussexes the cold shoulder. He stood near them. He did not join their conversation with Zara. He looked, by multiple accounts, completely stone-faced. He kept his distance and stayed that way for the duration.
For between Prince Harry and Mike Tindall, at an awkward Thanksgiving service for the Queen, Mike appeared to give the Sussexes the cold shoulder on the steps of the church, where Meghan and Harry were also booed by some in the crowd. Tindall looked stone-faced and stayed away from the royal couple as they exited St. Paul's Cathedral. He didn't join them in their conversation with his wife Zara before they left. Peter Phillips also looked awkward as he stood watching. Mike
This was not accidental. Members of the royal family do not accidentally cold shoulder people at formal state occasions. These things are noticed, photographed, and reported on. But there was something else from that same weekend, something that circulated in royal watching circles and was later reported. Mike Tindall was allegedly overheard at a Jubilee party referring to Harry with a one-word description I will call colorful and explicit. The word reportedly used was bellend, which for any viewers not familiar with British slang is about as cutting as it gets. And reportedly, again this is according to accounts from the time, the comment came partly in response to Harry's behavior toward a member of staff the day before. Then there was the cousins' lunch. During the Jubilee weekend, the family held a private gathering, a lunch for the cousins, the inner circle. Harry and Meghan were not there, and Mike, speaking about the weekend afterward, described that lunch as the highlight of his entire Jubilee experience. His exact words, "It was outstanding."
Mike later made pointed remarks about an outstanding secret lunch during the celebrations which Harry and Meghan didn't attend, claiming it was the best moment of the week. Mr. Tindall said at the time, "It was outstanding, to be fair. It was just great to be part of," adding, "We had a good cousins lunch on the Thursday. That was a highlight."
Think about that. An entire weekend of extraordinary national events, Trooping the Color, a pop concert on the Mall, a Thanksgiving service at St. Paul's, and the thing Mike called the highlight was the private lunch that the Sussexes did not attend. He was not being subtle. Now, the Harry comment was not the only notable moment at the Hay Festival. Mike also, reportedly after promising backstage that he would absolutely not go there, made a joke about Prince Andrew. Alex Payne had mentioned that his friend had been given his own bedroom at Buckingham Palace.
Having apparently told Haskell and Payne backstage that he would avoid the subject, Mike, this is why I love him, he can't help himself. He can't help himself. He made a gag about Andrew. So just hours before it was revealed that police widened their probe into the disgraced royal to include potential sexual offences, Payne joked that his friend had got his own bedroom at Buckingham Palace. Tindall replied to hoots of laughter, "Opposite end to Andrew, though."
Mike's response, delivered to what was described as hoots of laughter from the crowd, was opposite end to Andrew, though. Everyone in that room knew exactly what he meant. At the time this happened, Thames Valley Police had reportedly widened their investigation into Andrew, including potential sexual offenses. Mike was not making a throwaway quip. He was drawing a very deliberate line of distance. And this is worth noting. Mike and Zara are now living in Buckingham Palace apartments themselves, which makes his quip even more pointed. He is literally in the building. He knows which end he is in, and he is making very sure everyone understands he knows the difference.
What strikes me about Mike is not just that he makes these comments, it is how he makes them. No venom, no sitting down with a journalist for a carefully arranged takedown. He simply says the thing in public with a grin and moves on. That is a particular kind of confidence. He is not fighting a war. He's just telling you the truth as he sees it and trusting you to draw your own conclusions. Which brings me to the bigger question underneath all of this. Let's talk about what is really at the heart of Mike's comment, the claim that Harry used to be fun, because that framing implies something changed, and the question worth sitting with is what changed and when did the people closest to him first notice it? For most of the people who knew Harry before around 2016 and 2017, the picture is consistent. He was the Joker, the one who broke tension at stiff royal events with a well-timed remark, the one photographed laughing in every third picture. He had public incidents in his younger years, the Las Vegas photographs in 2012, the Nazi costume at a fancy dress party in 2005. But alongside those, he set up Sentabale for children affected by HIV in Lesotho. He launched the Invictus Games for wounded service personnel and showed up every year with what looked like genuine joy. He ran the London Marathon in full military kit for charity. That Harry, imperfect, occasionally chaotic, but warm and present and funny, is the one Mike Tindall is talking about when he says, when he was fun. The shift tracks by almost every account to around 2016 and 2017, the period when Harry met Meghan, when their relationship became serious, and when his perspective on the royal family and the institution began to change quite dramatically. Now, two things can be true at the same time here, and I want to be fair about this. Harry may have carried real grievances, real experiences of press intrusion, real feelings about being the spare, real pain from his mother's death and what happened in the years after. Those feelings are not erased just because his response to them has been, by almost everyone's assessment, deeply counterproductive. But the people who were closest to him, Mike, Zara, Peter Phillips, former friends who have spoken anonymously to journalists over the years, describe the same transformation. A man who became, as one analyst put it, bitter, angry, distant, someone who increasingly resented the institution even as he kept invoking it to build his brand, someone who stopped being easy to be around.
Because you can completely see it. Harry has gone from a guy, let's say, who I do think had a bit of a chip on his shoulder being the spare and these sorts of things. But it has been kind of metastasized into this very much this bitter, angry, vengeful man who just resents everything about his family, yet at the same time is so desperate to have the approval of his family in his actions and is constantly kind of utilizing his mother who is deceased, his grandmother who is deceased in order to sort of progress his narrative. And it's not gone particularly well.
Those are not tabloid inventions. Those are the assessments of people who genuinely loved him. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because in the exact same week as Mike's Hay Festival comments, something happened in American media that I think is being significantly underreported. People magazine in the United States ran a cover story around this same period with a headline that read, "Kate's back, and the monarchy needs her." People does not run covers like that accidentally. Every cover is a commercial calculation. Who sells copies? Who their readership actually wants to see? And right now, apparently, their readership wants Catherine. But the detail that really matters here is this. People magazine reportedly did not send a single reporter to Geneva to cover Meghan's appearance there, where she gave what was billed as a significant speech. Geneva reportedly drew a crowd numbering in the dozens, and People, which has functioned for years as something close to an unofficial Sussex communications arm, sent nobody. That is a publication making a quiet but entirely clear editorial decision about where the value is. The People article quoted author Catherine Mayer, who said senior working royals are stretched thin, none of them are young, and that William and Catherine are carrying the whole institution. Royal correspondent Russell Myers of the Daily Mirror was quoted saying there is no better time for Catherine to return, that she is a central force in the monarchy's ability to move forward. The contrast being drawn between Catherine arriving in Italy to an entire town coming out to meet her and Meghan's Geneva appearance drawing a handful of supporters is doing a great deal of work right now in how American media is quietly repositioning itself.
They announced she was going to be there. Wouldn't you know it, the entire town shows up to greet her. And when Meghan Markle announces her trip to Geneva, she can manage to scrounge up about 20 people who care. And so I think that definitely reflects very much how Catherine and Meghan are so different.
It took a while, but the repositioning appears to be happening, and that matters for the Sussexes' long-term commercial prospects in the U.S. more than almost anything else. Now, this is the story from the same period that I think flew under the radar, and which royal editor Richard Eden of the Daily Mail believes is genuinely significant for Harry's future. Prince William made an announcement about the Duchy of Cornwall, his private estate, which generates the income that funds his household and his public duties. The announcement was about a project in Cornwall, tackling homelessness, using Duchy land to build housing with proper support structures around it. In William's own words, 3 years ago, we set out to take a different approach, to think more carefully about how the duchy could use its land to create opportunity and support people over the long term. On the surface, this is a story about housing policy and royal philanthropy, but Eden's take is sharper than that.
He pointed out that nobody will have read that announcement more closely than Harry, because Harry grew up knowing that the Duchy of Cornwall, one of Britain's oldest and most significant royal estates, worth hundreds of millions of pounds, was always going to be William's. That was the deal. Heir gets the duchy, spare does not, and Harry, by multiple accounts, felt the weight of that distinction throughout his childhood. The more pointed part of Eden's analysis was this: William is already reshaping things, already making decisions, building his version of what the institution looks like, exercising real authority over something significant. And when he becomes king, he will bring that same decisive energy to the questions Charles has left unresolved. One of William's close friends, speaking anonymously to Eden, was direct. William will take a significantly harder line with Harry and Meghan when he is king. Charles has been generous, allowing Harry to keep his title, his position in the line of succession, his status as a counselor of state. William, those who know him well say, is unlikely to match that patience.
William will take a much harder line with Harry and Meghan when he's king, predicts one of William's friends, who declines to spell out exactly what that will mean for the California-based couple. What we can deduce from this week's radical announcement about the Duchy of Cornwall, as well as his intense display of emotion at the Aston Villa game in Istanbul, is that William will be different, and that whatever action he takes against the Sussexes, it will be dramatic.
That is not rumor. That is a considered, sourced prediction from inside William's actual circle. And speaking of William's circle, I want to show you something that the Daily Telegraph reported this week about the people William actually keeps close. Because when you look at who these men are and how they operate, it tells you something very direct about the contrast with everything Harry has chosen to do. The Daily Telegraph went inside William's inner circle, the tight group of friends he has maintained throughout his adult life and still keeps close now. None of them seek the spotlight. None of them are trading on the royal connection for television deals, brand partnerships, or podcast platforms. They are simply there, and that is exactly the point. Thomas Van Stronsonby, he and William met at Ludgrove Prep School as boys. Thomas was actually the man William leaned on at his 2011 wedding, and the friendship has not wavered since. James Mead, who met William at Eton around the year 2000, his father, Richard Mead, was an Olympic equestrian gold medalist with deep ties to the world the royals inhabit. Oliver Baker, part of the St. Andrew's house share with William and Catherine during university, there during the private years before the world knew about them. Hugh Grosvenor, the Duke of Westminster, one of Britain's wealthiest private individuals, the late Queen was his godparent. Grosvenor is in turn godparent to Prince George. The connections run deep and they run deliberately. Guy Pelly, the arranger, the St. Andrews connection, the one who organized the legendary stag do and was reportedly invited to the state dinner in Washington during King Charles's U.S. visit. And Ben Dawes, an entrepreneur who founded a wine business, someone William turned to at the Aston Villa match to cheer alongside. Understated, private, loyal. What the Telegraph noticed, and what I think is the real story here, is that none of these men appear to want anything from the relationship beyond the relationship itself. They are not positioning. They are not building a brand. They show up, they keep their mouths shut when it matters, and they support William in ways that do not make the front pages.
None of these men seem to seek out the spotlight, which is why they're so close to William in the first place. They're not like Harry trading off their connections in order to make money for themselves. They're perfectly content, I think, to be behind the scenes, to be there with William, though, supporting him in a sort of behind the scenes way. They're real friends. They're not friends for show. They're friends because they're really friends.
It is everything Harry's approach is not. And it is why William, surrounded by this group, can look at what his brother has done and understand clearly what a real friend actually looks like. Step back and look at all of this at once. Mike Tindall, someone who genuinely loved Harry, who was part of his life for years, who roughhoused with him at polo matches and watched him make rooms laugh, stands at a literary festival in Wales and tells the world cheerfully and without apology that Harry was fun once. Past tense. Peter Phillips, Harry's other cousin, is getting married in June and Harry is not invited. They reportedly have not spoken in years. People magazine, arguably the most Sussex-friendly major publication in American media, does not send a reporter to Geneva, runs a Catherine cover instead. William quietly reshapes the Duchy of Cornwall and signals through sourced reporting that he will be a very different kind of king when it comes to the Sussex question. And through it all, Harry and Meghan are in California, building a brand that, by most credible assessments, is declining in commercial value. The Spotify deal ended, the Netflix content had mixed returns, the book sold, but the fallout cost relationships that money cannot buy back. The picture that emerges is of a family, not a palace, not an institution, but actual human beings who grew up together, who have quietly, over time, accepted that the person Harry has become is not someone they can stay close to.
And I think what this comment really shows, Brittany, is they believe he's changed and they do blame a certain woman for changing him. Not that they're giving Harry any free ride here, but they do link that change to him ending up with Meghan.
Mike Tindall did not slam a door at the Hay Festival. He told a joke, but the joke told us everything about where the door has been for quite some time. Let's be direct about something that often goes unsaid in all of this. The working royal roster right now is genuinely thin. King Charles is managing his own health situation. Princess Anne does an extraordinary volume of public engagements, arguably more than anyone else in the family year after year, but she's in her 70s. The York side of the family is not in a position to carry public-facing duties for obvious reasons.
That leaves William and Catherine carrying almost everything, with George, Charlotte, and Louis growing into eventual roles, but years away.
Without Catherine and William, there is no monarchy in the future. It doesn't have one. You can't rely on Harry and Meghan. Next down from them is the Yorks, and you can't rely on them either. And so you have this situation where the monarchy is, in some ways, yes, it's getting a bit stronger, but there's still a level of crisis going on here.
Harry's departure did not just create a personal wound, it created a practical gap. The monarchy lost a working royal who was genuinely popular, with veterans, with young people, with international audiences. The Invictus Games had real reach. Whatever else you think about what has happened since, that gap is real, and it has not been filled. And yet, nothing in the current trajectory points toward a return. Every legal case, every interview, every pointed public comment has moved the needle further from any version of reconciliation that would allow Harry to step back into a working role. William, when he is king, is reportedly not going to be as patient as Charles has been. The Counselor of State status, the Sussex titles, the line of succession position, Charles has left these intact, apparently out of love and a fading hope that things might settle. William, by all sourced accounts, has no such illusions. What that actually looks like in practice, nobody can say precisely yet, but the direction of travel is visible, and Mike Tindall at a literary festival in Wales just gave you the clearest possible sense of the temperature inside that family right now. I want to come back to the 4 words one more time. When he was fun. On the surface, it is a throwaway remark about a wedding reception in Edinburgh in 2011, a bit of gentle ribbing between old friends on a podcast stage, the sort of thing that would not normally make headlines. But fun, in this context, is not just about laughing at parties, it is about being present. Being someone the people around you can actually relax with, being someone who makes the room lighter rather than more complicated. That version of Harry existed, by all accounts, for a fairly long time. He genuinely was that person. He made difficult situations easier. He was the one the family could rely on to break the tension. Mike Tindall is that person now, has been for years. He is the one who switches hats with Zara at the Jubilee and makes everyone laugh. The one who jokes about his own broken nose and the royal warrant on it. The one who says the thing everyone is thinking and somehow makes it land without causing a diplomatic incident. Peter Phillips is that person in his quieter way, and Harry reportedly is not.
That is not a tabloid verdict delivered by someone who never knew him. That is a 4-word verdict delivered by a man who stood in the same room with Harry in Hollywood House in 2011, who watched him make everyone laugh at Zara's wedding, who genuinely cared about him, and who is now speaking about him in the past tense, when he was fun. Past tense. In public, casual enough to sting.
Everyone, and I think everybody can agree, Harry is a lot less fun than he used to be, and I think the royal family knows that better than anyone. Harry used to be kind of the jovial, the fun royal, these sorts of things, and now he's just really the obnoxious one that nobody wants to talk to. Or
That's the full picture today. Mike Tindall, 4 words, a wedding snub from Peter Phillips, People magazine blinking, and a quiet signal from William about the kind of king he intends to be. All of it in the same week. None of it accidental. So here's what I genuinely want your opinion on, and I want you to be direct in the comments. Is there any version of events, any path, any apology, any shift where Mike Tindall and Prince Harry are ever genuinely close again? Or is what we saw at the Hay Festival the final, cheerful public closing of that chapter? Tell me what you think below. I read every comment, and this is exactly the kind of conversation this channel exists for. If you're new here, subscribe. This is what we do at Amelia Palace Reports. We go deeper than the headline, we source it properly, and we give you the full story. Share this video with someone who follows the royals. It helps more than you know. I'll see you in the next one.